It can look like luck, but really the luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I'm Bill Gross. This is our weekly homebuyer seminar. I'm here along with my colleague and friend
Patricia Castillo.
and our good friend and lender.
Shen Lender, how's it going, guys?
It's going great, man. Busy.
Going amazing.
We had, I shared listening with Patricia that we had just a crowd of people the last 2 weekends. We had a ton of offers. We're doing a
Beautiful
multiple counter
house,
offer.
by the way.
I'm sorry?
Beautiful
Yes.
house. I mean, big land. I can see why. I mean, perfect for someone who wants to add on, in the back, or even just
Yes.
have a big backyard. Usually, people now don't even have big backyards these days. So,
But there are people who walk in and say they want to buy it, but they're not getting it. The people who are getting it are the ones who planned a month ago, met with the lender, got the paperwork done, made the offer, got their act together, and felt comfortable to make a strong offer. Patricia, talk about what do
Right.
people like when they walk in the open house? The buyers, what's the range of buyers in terms of their preparation?
So it was really either buyers that were prepared versus buyers that were just completely not prepared. And it really backfired on them because we had so many offers on this property. And I always say, don't worry about how many offers are coming in because as long as you're ready to make an offer, that's all that matters. And
oh, I love that.
I have a couple of
Wow.
buyers that came in and were asking me how they can make an offer. And so they love the home. So that's like this mistake number one, right? You're shopping for a home without knowing what you pre qualified for.
Hmm.
And it's hard to deliver that news, but because you don't want to discourage people, but at the same time, you want to give them the accurate information that they need. And so during the open house, I was having these mini home buyer consultations in between guests that were coming in because buyers were interested. They wanted to make an offer, but they had not been pre qualified yet. And so during the second weekend of the open house, it was like a rush. I had a lot of people coming in, and several people wanted to get pre qualified. Normally, there are so many things that we can do virtually. We can send things for electronic signature. We did have a client that wanted to meet in person at an office. So we sat down with them, met them in person for about 2 hours. Shannon did the pre qualification on the spot. And unfortunately, they did not qualify because through all of the other offers that were coming in, the price was increasing. And so we mentioned that to the buyers and said it's listed at this price, but you also have to be prepared that it may go over this price, right? And so without disclosing what those numbers are, we gave them that information and said, this is what you're going to qualify for. And unfortunately, it wasn't going to be in the range that they needed to be in order to write a successful offer that would even be looked at or considered by the seller. So I could see that they were so disappointed.
Yeah.
And the good news is, I said, well, let's look at the big picture, though. You are pre qualified now. So don't get so down on yourself about not being able to make an offer on this property. But let's look at the bright side. You did qualify to buy a property. Now we just have to find a property for you that's in this price range. But this is working backwards, right? So this is why we do these homebuyer seminars to educate people that are looking to buy a home and the importance of getting pre-qualified ahead of time because you may not have time to actually meet with the lender and get all of your paperwork in before the offers are reviewed. So in this case, we had the open house this weekend. Offers were coming in to my email, to Bill's email throughout the weekend, through Monday and Tuesday. And then offers were reviewed. And we had a buyer that was still trying to fill out her application, right? So on Monday, she's still trying to upload her loan documents. Then she tells us that she's adding on another person, a second person to the loan application. Now that person needs to fill out the application and upload their documents. So here we are losing time because they're not ready. And, they were not able to submit an offer on time and they missed out. So the importance of for a buyer is to be ready. you don't want to miss out, especially when you've gone to an open house and you've seen a property that you really connected with. It's in the perfect area. It might be around the neighborhood where your parents live, your family lives. You may want to put your kids in that school district, and you're thinking this would be perfect for us, and you can see yourself decorating and everything. But when you go to get the loan approval, it may be too late. So that's why it's so important to have your documents ready, get a loan approval. If you know you're going to start looking at homes and going shopping, you definitely want to have your loan approval so you can know exactly what you qualify for, be comfortable with the monthly payment, and see if there's any way that you can lower the interest rate. Maybe you come up with some cash to buy down the rate. Maybe we pair that with a home buyer grant that can help you use that grant towards buying down your rate. So there's different scenarios that we can utilize and strategies, but it all starts with getting the buyer consultation and seeing where you're at financially so we can customize your plan. So all that to say, there were almost 30 offers on this property. And I mean, the market is not slowing down, especially for home buyers. I still see more buyers than there are homes available, especially in certain areas. There's just not enough inventory. And then there are some homes that have become a little stale. They've been sitting on the market for a while, and they've told me, I've already seen that house. I don't want that house. They're waiting for another listing to come on the market. So when you have a really nice home that comes on the market, there's going to be so much competition. So those are things that a buyer has to consider. Do you want to go up against a competition and be in the strongest position possible? Or do you want to go up against the competition and then have to start from square one when these other people are all already pre-qualified? It just puts you doesn't put you in a strong place as a buyer. Puts you at the end of the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, just to play devil's advocate, even for those buyers that we met, even if you go do, see a house that you like before you get pre-qualified, let's just say, right? And you do go through the motions of getting qualified. Like Patricia says, the good news is if you do get qualified, that's great. You have a number and you have a target. And just, I would say, maybe looking from the outside in, just don't have expectations on that first house, right? It's just, I think that's where you get tripped over a lot of buyers in terms of, hey, you know what? Let's go in this house. We want it. Let's get it. Obviously, it's not going to guarantee that you're going to get qualified, like she said. But the good news is, hey, you're qualified. You took these steps, and like you said, now you're ready to make that offer. But yeah, be ready. Always be ready, for sure.
If I could add a little bit also, I think I don't often work with buyers, certainly not retail buyers buying their own house. I'm a listing agent primarily. I think there's a disconnect that buyers think they can buy a property at a discount to the market. So if they want to buy a property that in their mind is worth $1 million, or let's say $500,000, just use a round number, $1 million, they somehow hope to buy it for $900,000, $950,000. And the retail market is very efficient, particularly in Southern California. Now, it may not be for off-market properties. It may not be in rural areas. It may not be for unique properties. But for general single-family residences or condos in the greater Los Angeles area, the market is very efficient. It's on the market. It's hard to get a discount. You're going to have to pay what it's worth. And so I rarely get agents and buyers call me and say, oh, the property's not worth that much. And I'm like, I got like 10 offers higher than your number. What do you want me to do? And I think here's the thing I would say is my job as a listing agent is not to take a consensus of all the buyers and buyers agents and sell the house for that consensus price. My job is to get the top price on the best terms, the best execution for my client. And so if everybody does their job, that means to buy a house, you have to be willing to pay more than anybody else would be willing to pay for it. You're not going to be able to steal it in most cases. Mm-hmm. Most investors I talk to who used to find little niches to kind of steal properties, they would buy foreclosures, they would buy probates, which is where I work. They would buy, other unique properties, the margins have gotten thinner, meaning they pay closer to the full retail price of that house than otherwise. And so I think the reality is you have to think about your house. If you're buying it for your home to raise your family or to live there for long term, it's a 10, 15-year investment. You really need to think about, you really want to lose it over 3-4% of the value of the property, because that's normally what the difference is between the winning bid and the second or third bid. It's not that much. And I have a very close family friend who bought a property and they paid well more than the listing price. But in that case, like my listing, it was purposely listed to generate an auction environment. Just because it's listed for that doesn't mean the seller is willing to accept that. The seller may anticipate that generating activity to go above the list price.
What does the list price mean? I mean, maybe that, because I see my buyers, they always say, oh, that price, I can qualify for that price, then that's mine because that's how much they said that they wanted, right? I guess maybe that's...
Well, I think generally that's a good strategy. I think generally if you're going to say to me, the seller's saying that's what they want for the property, if you can qualify for that and offer that, what I find is buyers who say that and then they offer 5% below that. And they're upset when they don't get the counter offer, the other buyer does. So I would say, if it's listed and you can afford that and you think that's a fair price, I would say offer the best price you can for the property to get it tied up. You don't get the property until you get into escrow first. And to play around just gives another buyer a chance to waltz in and pay more than you. So the truth is every market's different. Every area is different. In general, I think in California, homes sell on average like 99 to 98% of the list price, meaning a property is listed $1 million is going to sell for $980 to $990. It's not going to sell for $950. Generally, if it's been on the market for 30 days, that generally means it's at least 5% overpriced or more. But if it's not on the market for more than, say, 2 weeks, then you pretty much either have to hit the list price or within 1 or 2% of that if you're going to get it. Unless there's some...
Yeah.
And sometimes people call me like in this of interest, which I told any agent who called me, and I return all the phone calls from any agent who ever calls or texts me. And I told them that this is going to go over the list price because it's designed to. And some buyers just don't want to believe that. They see the list and, so anyhow, I would just say that you have to evaluate the property's worth. And I think be willing to pay that. And of course, if you get the appraisal comes in lower, that's your protection. You do an inspection, you discover defects, that's your protection. But to think you're going to get it below the real value of the property, I just don't think it's like thinking you're going to go into Best Buy and get a refrigerator for less than the price. They're not discounting. They discount refrigerators, but there's a sticker with a discount. You either buy it for that or you don't. This isn't Tijuana where you can negotiate down the price of everything that's in the store.
Well, I had a few buyers, ask me, well, do you think your seller would accept this price? And it was, 20, 30,000 below the list price. And so I asked them, why would you want to offer less? First, I said, do you think it's well priced? Oh, yeah, it's a great price. I said, why would you want to offer less if you already think it's a great price? And they would look at me with this, kind of perplexed look in their face. And I said, I'm not challenging the fact that you want to offer less. I'm just asking to understand your perspective. Why would you want to offer less? If you like the home and you like the location and you think it's a good price, why would you want to offer less? And they said, well, they all pretty much said something along the lines of, well, I want to see if I can get a good deal. But you are getting a good deal, right? Even if you bought it at the list price, even if you paid, a few thousand over the list price, you're still getting it at a good price. And so once I provided the buyers with this information, I said, if you were to buy this property and it was in a more updated condition, you'd have equity. If you look at the comps, you're going to see the comps are in upwards of 800,000. So why would you be buying a home and trying to buy a home and offering less than the list price? That's not going to put you in a strong position to even have your offer looked at. And so I practically had investors, wanting to buy me lunch. I mean, wanting to so many things just to represent them on the purchase. And I said, well, I'm not acting as dual agent in this capacity for this particular property, but feel free to submit your highest and best offer. And so, like Bill said, right now the margins are getting a lot slimmer for investors, and they're competing with buyers, and buyers are telling me that they're competing with investors. So I think that's one of the concerns I see right now, is that buyers feel like they're competing with cash investors, and the investors feel like they're competing with the buyers, because the sellers may want to wait an extra 2 weeks to close because the buyer's getting financing, but they might get an extra 50,000 more on their property.
Right. Yeah, I got offered. I had an investor who offered me that I could represent them, and then when they fix up the property, I could list it again. And the guy, he has to tell me this, like I just fell off a cabbage truck or something. That's 3 commissions. So he's basically saying, I'm going to offer you twice as much to really cheat your seller and pick me at a cheap price than your current seller is paying you. You can take your money from your seller and sell it to me on the cheap, and then I'll pay you twice what he is to cheat him. Basically, it's kind of what he's saying without saying it. And it just always, it's really insulting. I mean, I know there are people who take that deal all day long. I'm not, I guess it works. I guess, crime at some level works, or criminals wouldn't, do crime. And I think doing an ethical thing works to some degree in the short run. It just doesn't work in the long run. And so I just don't do that. But again, and you can make a living on that as an investor. I think that's not the right thing. And as a buyer as well, I would say, if you see a house you like, and I get this one, I love it, I just don't want to pay, too much. You're going to pay what it's worth. Just get it. If you really want to live there for 10, 15 years, lock it up. You're not going to regret it 10, 15 years from now. You're never going to remember what you paid with them, plus or minus $30,000 10 years from now. But you remember, look, I can drive by houses I didn't buy because I just couldn't step up the number. In those cases, I only had so much money, and I just missed out on 2 really good deals. Oh my gosh. But anyhow, it is what it is. You can only do what you can do.
That's right. So, moral of the story, be prepared. Get your analysis done. Call us to help you. We don't have to run your credit. We can give you an analysis of what you might qualify for. If you're buying a condo, it's going to change. Your purchase price will change if you're buying a single family home. There's different scenarios that we can look at for you and see which one would make more sense for you. So, like, for example, one of the clients that we met with, they qualify for a single family home, but not in LA. It'd probably be Palmdale.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with Palmdale.
Nothing wrong with Palmdale, but they want to be here in LA, and I should say closer to the city of LA. And they're not too thrilled about buying a condo. But I think part of that sentiment is because they fell in love with that house. And so they had their heart set on that home. And when you have to think about the alternatives and buying a condo, which is not a bad thing, but they can't get that house out of their mind. And so that's where it seems like it's kind of putting a little cloud over buying a condo. But at the same time, people need to move, people need to buy. And so the best case scenario would be to get your finances looked at so that we can see what you qualify for and help you get into the next property that's going to make the most sense for you, for you.
Yeah. Maybe next week we'll talk about condos, pros and cons of buying condos.
In the meantime, pros and cons of working with a great lender. Look at that, Patricia, working with one of our favorite lenders.
That's right. When Shannon bought me a coffee after we met with this client, and it was perfect because I needed that little pick me up in the afternoon.
We all do.
If you don't follow Patricia on the IG, at Patricia Castillo Sales LA on the IG, and you'll actually get my business too, because she posts more about me than I post myself.
That's right.
So anything special this weekend, Patricia? How would somebody get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
My phone number, 323-365-9909.
Or catch her on the IG, and you'll catch her latest property she's at, selling, listing, closing. She's got something going on. I'm exhausted watching her Instagram. I have to think of it, sit down when I read it. Shannon the lender, how can somebody get a hold of you? What's going on special with you?
Yeah, if you're watching this right now, you're thinking about getting pre-qualified, reach out to Patricia. We can set up an appointment in person within 24 to 48 hours. You can get a spot approval. there's not a lot of places where you can go and we'll again tailor everything to you. It'll take less than an hour, and yeah, be prepared. Be prepared,
Fantastic.
guys.
I'm Bill Gross, at Bill Gross Probate and Social Media, and thank you for joining us. Hey, if you have any questions, comments, put it in the chat below. Love to help you. Love to help you when we can. Make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.